Welcome to Wednesday Night Bible Study here at AWC. We are delighted that you have logged in. For those of you who need our location, it's 6245 Shannon Road here in Mesquite, Texas. Services are at 10:15 on Sunday morning and every Wednesday at 7:30 where you are right now. We hope you had a wonderful day. This will be the conclusion of the series, Flawed and Chosen. Flawed and Chosen. Let's go to our slide, and first, as always, let's look at the definition for flaw. And flawed, by definition, is blemished, damaged, or imperfect in some way of a person having a weakness of character. And this is just a review right now. We all know that we are flawed in some way. Some you can see, some you cannot see. Now let's look at chose by definition. And is to pick out or select someone or something as being the best or worst, the best or most appropriate of two or more alternatives. Decide on a course of action, typically after rejecting alternatives. And that is the purpose of this series, that even though we are flawed, we are imperfect as a people, God has still chosen us for his use, and we are extremely grateful. We're still talking about flawed and chosen. And when you come to the realization, for some of us, that, oh my God, I have these flaws, I have these hiccups, I have these, whatever it is, it's important for us to stay in community, okay? So let's talk about finding support. And we're looking at 1 Thessalonians 5:12. And it says, and we beseech you, brethren, to know them who labor among you and are over you in the Lord and admonish you. It is very important to stay in community. Whether you know a ton of flaws or just a few flaws, there is strength when we are together. And you don't feel like you are by yourself. A lot of times we'll know that we have a hang up or something is off with us or we're not right in a particular area of our life. And it's the trick of the enemy to isolate yourself so that you don't even get to know the people that are around you. In this church, I'm talking about AWC right now, I know that there is someone on every pew that can help or be a benefit of someone else. Hopefully we are all open to share to our brother or sister that is in need. So it's important to get to know people because you are not by yourself. One of the most crippling things that the enemy uses is feeling like you are alone. Being in a population of people and you feel like you are the only one with a flaw. You are the only one that struggles. You are the only one. And some of us are struggling and some of us are victorious and looking for the victory in other areas. The point is, get to know the people around you and you will know that you have a community, okay? Let's keep talking about finding support. We're going to talk about Matthew 7:12-20. And this is Jesus talking. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. Although Jesus is talking about prophets, there are some even in pews that have sheep clothing on, but they are not right. 16 says, you will know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Even so, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Therefore, by their fruits, you will know them. It's very important. I cannot stress this enough, how much it is important to get to know the people around you. You will know them by the fruit that they bear. You will know them by conversation. The more people talk, the more you get to know what's going on in their head. You get to hear what's going on in their heart. You get to know if they're open about their inward struggles and they've healed and they don't mind sharing. You'll know if they're still struggling. You'll know if they just want to keep to themselves. Okay? So we'll know people. I know Jesus was talking about prophets, but you will know people by the fruit that they bear. Just like when you're at work and you know the person you need to stay away from because you hear them talking about everybody else, that's a fruit that they are bearing that lets you know, oh, you don't confide in that person because they like to run their mouths about other people's things. I'm just putting it where we are, okay? So you will know people by the fruit that they bear, okay? And we're still talking about finding support. Let's go to 1 Samuel 1, 3 through 5, and we're going to visit Hannah. And it says, year after year, this man, talking about Elkanah, went up from his town to worship and sacrifice to the Lord Almighty at Shiloh, where Hophni and Phinehas, the two sons of Eli, were priests of the Lord. Whenever the day came for Elkanah to sacrifice, he would give portions of meat to his wife Peninnah and to all her sons and daughters, which are also his kids. But to Hannah, he gave a double portion because he loved her, and the Lord had closed her womb. Now, this is a problem that a lot of us know this story, but I don't want to assume upon the text. This is a problem that God has caused. She cannot have a baby, not because she did something wrong, because it says God closed her womb. So it didn't matter what they did. She was not having a baby. God had that womb closed, okay? Everyone doesn't know the full story or extent of an issue, all right? And we're getting ready to find that out. Let's go to the next slide. And we're still in 1 Samuel. And if you've never read 1 and 2 Samuel, 1 and 2 Kings, I encourage you to do so. It is so much in there. All right, and it says, in her deep anguish, we're talking about Hannah, Hannah prayed to the Lord, weeping bitterly, and she made a vow. Keep in mind, she's in the temple talking to the Lord at this time. And she made a vow saying, Lord Almighty, if you will only look on your servant's misery and remember me and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor will ever be used on his head. And 12, as she kept on praying to the Lord, Eli observed her mouth. Hannah was praying in her heart, and her lips were moving, but her voice was not heard. Eli thought she was drunk and said to her, how long are you going to stay drunk? Put away your wine. 15 says, not so, my lord, Hannah replied. I am a woman who is deeply troubled. I have not been drinking wine or beer. I was pouring out my soul to the Lord. Do not take your servant for a wicked woman. I have been praying here out of my great anguish and grief. Eli answered, go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant you what you have asked of him. We can see right there. Everyone doesn't know the story. They don't know. A lot of times we have these movies and we call them the villain origin story. When I remember the first time I went to see Batman, he automatically had a nemesis, right? Just automatically. And it took for them to one day make Joker, for you to understand the origin, because Joker wasn't born Joker. Okay, something happened. Okay, for those of you who went to see, I forget that the origin of Wicked. When I used to watch, what's the movie called? The Yellow Brick Road. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Wizard of Oz. Thank you, man. The Wizard of Oz. When the Wizard of Oz came and we first saw the Wicked Witch, she was just the Wicked Witch. She was green. We knew she was evil. We knew all those things all my life. That's all that I knew until Wicked came out. And I said, oh, this is her origin story. And then you find out, oh, that's what happened. So even though I had an opinion of the movies I saw before, when I see the origin story, I'm like, oh, now I understand. Eli is making a presumption upon just what he sees. Her mouth is moving, and she is just saying words in her heart. It wasn't for him, but he misunderstood the whole situation and is rebuking her. Isn't it so discouraging when you are misunderstood? Even more discouraging when you're misunderstood in the house of the Lord. And unfortunately, there are people who will try to mark what's going on with you based on what they see on the outside. Eli was way off. This man of God missed it terribly. Thought she was drunk. He's like, put away your wine. How long? He's like, no. My heart is hurting. My soul is in anguish. I'm pouring it out. And he ended up saying, oh, may the Lord bless you. I don't know if I would have went back to church, though. And we got to be careful when we call ourselves helping, rebuking, correcting things that we don't know the full story of, right? And we can't judge a book by its cover. We can't see someone crying in church and just automatically assume that they're going through something. Maybe their marriage is bad, the kids, or what's going on. I remember that happened to me one time in church where I was just really just sorrowful. And are you okay? Are you okay? I'm like, oh, I'm okay. I'm okay. You know, I'm okay. But it looked like, that's what I should have said. It looked like I was sad, but I wasn't sad, you know. But we can't presume upon anyone from the outside unless that person has spoken to you. Here's the deal with doing that. That person will probably not want to confide in you, will probably not feel comfortable with you because you immediately assume something about them that wasn't even true. And I don't know, the culture of the time was different there, but we have to be careful when we call ourselves trying to help people, okay? Let's go on to the next slide. And now we're going to talk about Job, and we're still talking about being flawed and chosen, but tonight we're talking about finding support and how you need to be careful even when looking for support in the house of the Lord, okay? So now we're going to talk about Job. And it says, one day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. The Lord said to Satan, where have you come from? Satan answered the Lord, from roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it. Then the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil. 9, does Job fear God for nothing? Satan replied, have you not put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? You have blessed the work of his hands so that his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land. But now stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. The Lord said to Satan, very well, then everything he has is in your power. Put on the man himself, do not lay a finger. Y'all, this is the origin. We've heard Job's story, but this was going on, and I don't know what Job was doing. He probably was tending sheep. He was doing something with the goats. He was counting his bread. I don't know what he was doing, but this is where it all started. This is where it started, okay? Nothing about what this conversation between Satan and the Lord, nothing said that Job had done anything wrong. As a matter of fact, the Lord was bragging on him, that he's upright. And the enemy was like, he only doing that because you blessed him. Back up a little bit, and he'll curse you. Let's go to the next slide. Job 2:11. Now, before I even read this, let me interject because I didn't want to put too much on the screen. Job, the enemy touched Job's life in a way. All of his children were taken away, collapsed house. All of his animals were taken away, and we know at that time the Bible is set up agriculturally, that's money. Everything was taken. His skin broke out in boils. He just had a lot going on. Everything was hit at the same time. The first 2 chapters of Job is like, oh my gosh, before one messenger stopped talking, another messenger came with something bad. Then another messenger came with something bad. Then another messenger came with something bad. So now let's go to our slide. We'll see here that in his misery, Job's friends come to see about him, Job 2:11. Now, when Job's 3 friends heard of all this adversity that had come upon him, each one came from his own place. All right, y'all, with these names, pray from it. Eliphaz, the Temanite, Bildad, the Shuhite, and Zophar, the Zemtite. Yeah. For they had made an appointment together to come and mourn with him and to comfort him. I'm going to stop right there for a second. We'll go back to it. First off, it is so good to have community. I cannot stress that. A lot of people will join a church and it's like they want to go to the church, but they don't want to have anything to do with the people. That's odd. And I get it to a certain extent, especially if you've experienced pain within the church by church people and you've been churched, so you've heard it all. But that's the trick of the enemy as well. Having friends, someone who got you, is priceless. The Bible also says how 2 is better than 1. If one falls in a hole, then the other one can pull him up. But if you fall by yourself, nobody can help you. So please get to know people that are around you. God has someone for you here. Okay, so let's go back to our slide. I love that they made an appointment and said, let's go see about our friend. We're at 12. And when they raised their eyes from afar and did not recognize him, they lifted up their voices and wept. And each one tore his robe and sprinkled dust on his head toward heaven. That's morning. So they sat down with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his grief was very great. Okay? I like these friends. So far, so good. I don't have a problem with them. One of the biggest takeaway from this scripture is that when you don't know what to say, just go on and hush. It's okay. If you don't know what to say, just hush. Sometimes your presence is what gives someone strength. Sometimes people just want to know that they're not alone. It doesn't mean you have to have the answer. It doesn't mean you got to have some kind of big, deep spiritual insight or you got to come prophesying or nothing like that. Sometimes people's strength is knowing that I'm not by myself. And he had friends that were willing to sit with him 7 days and 7 nights and not say a word. And I was like, oh, wow, do I have one friend that, nope, no, we gonna talk. They gonna talk. Or try to get me to talk, eat, or do something. But they saw that his pain and his anguish, and he looked so bad. They was like, oh, this is worse than what we thought. Let's just sit here with our friends. And that's a great characteristic. And it bears for us to ask, am I that kind of friend? Am I that for my sister and brother? Am I willing to do that? Just sit with them and just be there and be strength and pray quietly and not say anything and not have the answer, but just love them and know that I am there. Okay? Let's go. Let's go to our next slide. And we're only going to talk about one friend tonight because all of them had something to say, but I specifically want to talk about Eliphaz, one of his friends that sat with him for 7 days and hushed. He decided he wanted to open his mouth, and this is just a part of what he said. Is it because of your fear of him, talking about God, that he corrects you and enters into judgment with you? Is not your wickedness great and your iniquity without end? For you have taken pledges from your brother for no reason and stripped the naked off their clothing. You have not given the weary water to drink, and you have withheld bread from the hungry. Y'all, this is just a portion of just one friend that said this. He was quiet for 7 days, and then he messed up and tried to figure it out, and therefore blamed Job you must have done something wrong. Now, we read the origin. The origin of it was God and Satan having a conversation. And the Lord said he's upright. He stays away from evil. Now, here go your friend telling you, oh, no, you must have did something wrong. Y'all ever met people like that? I know I have. In the house of, oh, what you do wrong? You did something. All of this would be happening. Can we truly say that? Especially when we're given this example? Because, in our minds, it's always a cause and effect. They taught us that in school. Because this is what happened, right? But God, his ways are different from ours. And he said Job was upright. But his friend said, you're wicked. And all three of them erred in that way. All of them trying to figure it out. People of God, it is okay not to know. Let me encourage our hearts. It is okay that we don't have the answer. And it's okay to say, I don't know. People will respect you more for saying, I don't know. Honey, I don't know why you're going through this, but I'm here for you. It reminds me of, I was speaking to a lady, and she was telling me at a point in time in her life, her daughter's an adult now, her daughter was having seizures around 5 years old, back-to-back seizures, and they couldn't figure out what's going on. And her pastor at that time told her, well, maybe if you stop doing what you're doing. And she said, I could not wrap my head. I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing? So maybe if you stop doing what you're doing, then your baby wouldn't have seizures. And her daughter is in her 20s now. She's never forgotten that. Never. How do you think that made her feel? So my daughter is suffering because and now she's in her head trying to figure out, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? You already feel that way as a parent, that you've done something, and it's like, what's happening? But now on a spiritual level, he said, stop doing what you're doing, and she couldn't figure it out. Y'all, we got to be slow, dare I say, don't do it, to judge a situation when you don't know. Just say, we're going to pray for this baby. That's it. Just say, we're going to pray for the baby. We're going to pray for you to have strength, and we're going to pray for the baby that she is delivered from these seizures. But this is what his friends decided they wanted to do when they weren't there for the conversation between God and the enemy. And when we are looking for help, sometimes we run across people like this. Unfortunately, and many of us watching, we have run across people like this. You're like, man, I hate I ever talked to them. We have to be careful that we are not those people, especially when someone comes to talk to us about something that we have got the victory over, because we haven't always had the victory over that. And we also can't be ashamed or even embarrassed to share with our sisters and brothers who are where we once were. All right? Let's go to our next slide. I'm almost done. Before confiding in someone, I want everyone to consider a few questions. Is this person trustworthy? Will they phone a friend? Let me stop right there. Nothing worse than a friend that'll tell a friend. Nothing worse than someone who cannot hold water. I'm friends with you. I ain't friends with your friend. So why are you talking to them about me? All right. Is this person trustworthy? Let's go back to the slide. That's one thing to consider. Okay. Will they make a mockery or judge my pain? And unfortunately, sometimes we find that out a little too late, because some people will mock, poke fun, and even judge your absolute pain. Are they compassionate? Let me tell you something about being compassionate. Being compassionate doesn't mean I support wrongdoing. It means I feel you, sis. Even if that's not my struggle, I feel you, sis, because I've struggled with something, even though it's not the same. Are you compassionate? Does your heart feel for them and you want them to overcome that? Okay? Because a lot of times we lack compassion when we're far removed. We lack compassion till it hits our house, till it hits our kids, till it hits our family. Then we got all the compassion in the world, right? But when it's not at our front door, it seems like that ain't my struggle, right? So observe and see, know the people among you. Are they compassionate? Let's go to the same slide. Will they share from experience? Y'all, this gives people strength and gives them hope, especially if you have overcome. And will they point me to God or themselves? Let me tell you something. We got people who want you to worship them. We have people, and I'm not saying like in our church kind of stuff, but there are people who want to be worshiped as a demigod. All right? They want you to see them as some spiritual Hercules type thing. Okay? And they will point you to themselves. It's very cunning, so you have to be careful. And you will look to them only for spiritual insight and not unto God. Now, I'm not saying that people don't have spiritual insight, because he's given people gifts and discernment, right? But to the point where you bypass God totally and you go to them because you trust the God in them, but not your God. Okay? And sometimes they steer you that way. I've seen people's lives be dictated by particular people. They won't make a move without consulting this person. And I'm like, that's very odd. That's very strange behavior, okay? So all you have to do is listen. Listen, hang around, and you'll know who's around you. You'll know if this is where I should go to help or to find help or strength, okay? Let's go to the next slide. And I'm about to conclude. God knew, and he still chose you. I close with this every Wednesday during this series. He is faithful. He has the ability to see not only our present, but our end. And he already knows the middle of your story. So don't question why he chose you. You are asking God Almighty why you chose me when he knows the beginning, middle, and end of your story, and he still called your name. Clearly, he has something that he wants to do, something that is going to bring glory out of your life, out of your life, glory to him out of your life. And that's what we're here for, okay? When you say yes to the Lord, it's to bring him glory. To bring him glory. Don't take your yes back because it's weird. Don't take your yes back because you are flawed. He knew that and he chose you. We talked about David being flawed. He chose him anyway. We talked about Elijah, and he was flawed and he was chosen. And remember, insert your name. Even though you are flawed, you are very much loved and chosen by God. And the last slide, remember, God knew all about you before you knew you were even called. I want to thank all of you for tuning in tonight, hanging in with me throughout this series, Flawed and Chosen. I hope that it was helpful. I know that it was helpful to me. Please look at the bottom of the screen. If you're able to give $20 tonight, this is great ground to plant seeds in. You can give through Cash App, Givelify, or Zelle. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we appreciate it. We are so grateful that God has sustained us, and he continues to sustain us. I hope you have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you Sunday at 10:15.